What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Strategy Gaming channel. As always, I'm Drew, and this is what I hope to be one of many of my series this week in Eorzea. So I've decided that I'm going to, instead of covering every little piece of news that comes in the game of Final Fantasy, that it gets its own video. The smaller stuff is actually going to come into this weekly video. If you've seen Mr. Happy, this is kind of close to that. I'm not going to go into the lore side of things, but definitely something along those lines. The game plan is to post these every Monday, so tune in for that. That's because where I'm at in the States, we move into our weekly reset. So got a few things to cover in this video. For these videos, we're typically going to do Square Enix news, community news and drama, and an update on my personal progress, as well as plans for the following week on a personal level. So first video, let's get into it. Now, the live letter from Square Enix is coming on the 17th, and that's coming up real soon. So Square Enix has said that they are going to give us new updates on what's to come in Endwalker, as well as a few miscellaneous updates. We don't really expect to see, at least first, I think, the job action trailer. I also think that they're going to cover Sage and Reaper first, so that they can explain anything that might be getting removed or repurposed from other classes as they flesh out these two new ones. As always, the numbers and the output are expected to change prior to launch, so don't get hooked in on numbers if they're too small or too big for the Sage and the Reaper, because those are subject to change, and those are either going to be good or bad in the interim. So a couple other topics that I'm guessing Square Enix is going to cover is the job changes as a whole, the removal of belts, which is something that isn't necessarily controversial. It's one less item we have to worry about, but it's interesting that they're going with that. And then hopefully a bit deeper of an explanation on the upcoming stat squish. I mean, we can't just keep memeing about it without knowing what's really up, you know, based on the FanFest and the single slide that we got. So I think that'll be funny. While I am excited about this live letter, I'm actually being a little cautious. And the reason I say that is I'm an Astrologian main, and because of that, I'm terrified for how much change is probably going to be coming. This will be the second time in as many expansions that Astro gets a rework of some kind, and while I really do miss the old system, I'm scared of how much change is to come. It feels like they're moving White Mage and Astro into White Mage's role as your priority healer, if you will, and then the Sage and the Scholar are kind of your supplementary shields. In my static, I've been playing Diurnal Sect, and honestly, I really like it. It forces me to learn the fights a little bit more, so I'm kind of excited. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a little worried what's going to happen, and it might change what I end up rolling. So hoping that's not the case. I love being an Astro. So, all right, that brings us next to community news and drama. So starting off with the news, as of this recording, the second of 5 stories from the Tales of the Twilight has been released. You can catch those on the Lodestone. There will be a link to the Lodestone to the particular ones down below in the description. I'm typically not an in-depth lore kind of guy, but I found both of these reads to be really fun, and I'm actually excited about the remaining 3, so I think that could be a really good thing. Nocturne for Heroes makes its return. For those of you who don't know, this is a crossover event that starts on September 13th for all players to participate in. The crossover is between Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy 15, and it's a collaboration, and I think there's going to be a huge turnout as a lot of the newcomers, as well as people who missed it last time, get an opportunity to go grab that 4-seater mount. I think you're going to see a lot of people come out for that, so make sure September 13th you get started on it as quickly as you can. Get that car. Lastly, before we move into the community drama section, any artists out there, if you have not taken a look at the Lodestone, there's currently a weapon design competition going on. Details are in the link down below in the description, but don't miss the opportunity to showcase your skill set. Even if you aren't chosen, I know that there's a large portion of this community who would love to see unique and creative designs from passionate players, especially those who are artistically gifted. Make some of those designs, even if you don't get picked, put them on Reddit, you know, put them on Pinterest or on Imager. I mean, people would love to see that, myself included. I would love to see some other mock-ups from people who aren't actually working on the game to see what they would come up with. So I think that could be really cool, and I encourage you to go out there and try that. So let's move on. Community drama. All right. Before we get started, let me make a very short PSA. While I know that this particular comment is more than likely going to rub some people the wrong way, my intention is to draw my personal line in the sand and stick to it. As you may have known, if you've watched some of my other videos, I have played 14 on and off over the years, but I didn't make it my main game until this past February. I really dislike the term WoW refugee. My perception of that phrase feels negative, and I have seen in the Final Fantasy XIV community it being used as a pejorative term. And 14 has always been touted to me by those in my friend group and those who play it around me as a great community, positive, not super toxic, happy people. With the current large influx of players, the sheer amount of gatekeeping and tribalism from the non-WoW players has been really eye-opening for someone like me. I wasn't exposed to this level of toxicity or hypocrisy, honestly, when I finally went all in on this game back in February. And with a large burst of players joining us as a group, I realized now that maybe I was either shielded or maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough for it, realistically. And that brings me to the 2 community drama points for this particular video. First is going to be Asmongold, his effect on the game, and his decision to take a break from streaming. So I've said this before, 2+ years ago, I was not a fan of Asmongold or his content at all. You know, personally, I don't really care that he's not PC or that he's kind of over the top as a character. It's not my place to judge someone I don't know. And the same goes for you as a viewer. Then Asmon started making conscious efforts to clean up his community and make lasting changes to how his fan base behaved. Well, he's made massive strides. The work's still not done. We've seen that. He's gotten into a lot of drama recently, but don't sit there and say it's from a lack of him not trying, because it's really not. If you've actually watched any of his content, not just his videos on YouTube, but his actual stream, he is looking in the chat and dissuading people from acting the way that they are. And realistically, he's not responsible for the actions, and he makes it very clear that he doesn't condone that type of behavior from his community. What more are we going to hold him to? Like, what more can you hold him to? Again, if you're upset he's not PC, don't consume his content. Like, it's very, it seems so simplistic to me, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but if you don't like him, you don't have to watch him. I don't like the Kardashians. I don't. But I don't fucking care about them, so I don't listen to them. Does that make sense? So as far as him taking a break goes, I actually think it's the right call. The guy produces a ton of content and he plays quite a bit of video games. That inherently comes with a lot of negativity and a lot of emotional stress. And the second that you stop enjoying what you're doing, you need to find a way to get out of that. And I think this is positive for him. I think this is a good decision that will kind of help him reevaluate what's important to him. Now, the last statement on Asmon for this particular video is, like him, hate him, don't care about him, it's your life. But don't sit there and try to deny that his presence has not been a net positive for 14. There are lasting effects, both positive and negative, sure, that we will see as a result of him joining the game. I'm excited personally to see what changes can be made for the game following this insanely large and new flow of cash that has gone into Square Enix's pocket as a result of his personal influence. Fair? All right, enough about Asmon. Let's talk about Rich Campbell. Hashtag Rich Cobb, as the kids are naming it these days. I went down some Reddit threads, and I've done my best to try and stay off Twitter for this particular thing. Honestly, what's the deal, folks? Like, seriously, why is Rich Campbell clearing ultimate coils affecting you this much? And if you're sitting there watching this and you're like, it didn't affect me at all, cool. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who have gone, in my opinion, fucking nuts. Reddit has been honestly kind of funny. Twitter, not so much. There's a trope of people on Reddit who basically have said, who the fuck's Rick Campbell? Like, all right. And then there's a bunch of people who are just losing their minds that a streamer got a clear of an ultimate. I've got 3 quick points to get off my chest for this one. It might not be quick, but hope you understand. Number 1, People claim it's streamer privilege, and he basically got carried. My response is twofold. First, if he didn't go out of his way to learn the fight, learn his class, and spent the entire fight dead, you'd have a bigger leg to stand on for this one. But if you've actually gone in and seen it, instead of just being like, here's a headline, time for me to react, he was putting himself into the fight. He was learning as he could go just as much as any other team member would go. I think he was alive for like 60+% of the fight. Yeah, and sure, his parse was terrible. So to the people who talk about parses and how, oh, he didn't contribute, as a former WoW Ultimate equivalent player, like Raider that I used to be, parses don't mean anything on first clears. They don't. My second thought is streamer privilege is also actually working against him in this situation. Now, there are several hundred players out there, probably more, I'm just using base numbers that I can think of, who more than likely have bought a carry to get this title. Seriously, how is that any different? And will you also condemn those players just as hard as you're condemning Rich? I didn't know who Rich was until like 4 years ago because I was playing WoW and I realized he was a broadcaster. I don't consume his content. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't know him. Who cares, right? His status as a streamer, it means that he's put into the public eye. And then those same people I just talked about who may or may not have bought a kill just don't have that level of notoriety. Now, while streaming does have its advantages of being popular, those come with perks. Rome wasn't built in a day, and the game and the money that Rich has earned in the years that he's done this has been from hard work. All right, point number 2, tribalism. The amount of people who will vilify new players, particularly those who came from WoW or what they call the other game, is quite honestly embarrassing. The whole, our community is so great because we aren't toxic like WoW players, honestly feels a bit like a lie. I'm making a broad generalization, and that's not the case. My experience has been pretty positive, but there are bad apples. Same goes for pretty much any video game you can play that is online in some way. I'm sorry if this statement hurts your feelings. If it doesn't affect you, good. That is kind of the whole point to this. We want our game to grow. Growth is good, but gatekeeping and not accepting people into our community because they played a different game beforehand, or they have some preconceived notion that because they came from WoW, they have to be a toxic player, is BS, dude. It's so crazy to think that players left WoW because it was toxic and wanted to get away from it, and this is where they end up. Imagine leaving a game that you've played for years, sunk a lot of time into in hopes of getting a better experience and being pumped into a demographic that you don't even fit into. To those of you out there who gatekeep or have a dying tribalism within 14, you are part of the problem. I said it, and I mean it. Third point, lastly, to those of you who already have this title, or to those of you currently working for it or wish to do so in the future, Rich Campbell's kill in no way devalues your accomplishments. I'm paraphrasing here, but I saw a comment on Reddit that said, the people who seem the most upset are players who believe themselves to be good enough to have earned the title, but may have not been able to form the right group to get the clear. Now, while I'm sure you've developed bonds, if you are currently going for this title with those people in your static, if they aren't good enough, then they aren't good enough. That this is considered the hardest content within the game. It's not supposed to be for everyone. If you feel like you are skilled enough to do so, that's great. And if you are, I hope that you find a group that can do it. But if you joined a group and they have glaring issues, don't get mad that someone else got into a group that was easier for them. Find a group that fits your needs. Honestly, if you have the title right now and you feel like it's devalued based on what happened with Rich and how he went about obtaining this, the title means too much to you if that's the case. For those of you who are working on it and plan on doing it in the future or looking to get into it, this doesn't change that achievement for you. Yeah, Rich did have an advantage due to his notoriety. If anything, shouldn't that make you feel like your achievement was actually more well-earned? What are you mad at him for? On top of that, didn't Zepla get a kill with her static that had like 4 other players who already had clears? I didn't see her parse, but why is she any different? She came to WoW as well, if you remember. I'm not seeing any hate towards her, and to be perfectly clear, she doesn't deserve any hate, much like Rich doesn't. They both earned it. Stop acting out. Alright, now that I've got the negative out of the way, I've said my piece. Let's move on to the final portion of this video. My progress. Alright, so as of right now, I'm currently, although very casually, leveling Red Mage while leveling Mining and Goldsmithing. Now, crafting and gathering in this game are amazing. My experience, Guild Wars, and WoW, as far as crafting and gathering go, this blows it out of the water. It's so much better. If you haven't gotten into it, I am truly advocating for you to give it a chance. If you don't like it, there's no harm. If you do like it, what a rush. I think my Red Mage is 58, excuse me, Mining's 51, Goldsmithing is 52 at this point. I realized in a previous video, my earlier goals of getting the Amaro mounts just aren't plausible, period. At this point, I've got a 510 item level Monk, a 508 item level Astro, a level 70 Warrior, Samurai, and Dancer. Realistically, I wanted to get the Warrior, Samurai, and the Red Mage to 71 before I moved into Bashta. I've gotten Bashta unlocked at this point, and I was just kind of figuring out what classes I'd like to level and utilize to make my relic weapon. As of right now, I only have the one weapon. It's on the Astro because that's what I play as my main, and it's stage 3 out of 5, and I'm planning on finishing it and moving on to the Warrior. Because if you saw the video that I had about the weapons, the relic weapons of this expansion, those are the two that I definitely was like, I mean, Astro, it's my main, it's what I like to play, so there's no way I wasn't going to get that one. But that Warrior one, fully completed, looks so dope. So definitely going to be working on that one next. As for the MSQ, I'm currently at the start of 5.4. The goal is to finish 5.4 this weekend and eventually push into 5.5 and complete that by the end of September. I'm not in any rush. I mean, that's collectively, I think that's 21 quests. It's really not going to take me that long. It gives me plenty of time to level other classes to 80, and as well as get my crafting and gathering together. As far as the crafting and gathering go, mining and goldsmithing are going to go to 80. Like I said, I'm 51 and 52 respectively on that one. I just got to the point where I'm making collectibles in goldsmithing, which that whole layer of crafting is so cool to me, because you really have to think about it. Like in other games, you just like, oh, I got the mats, I click this button, wait 30 seconds, and cool, the item's created. This is not intuitive, but interactive. And man, it feels so good to have a job feel like a job. Because it's fun. It's genuinely really fun trying to figure out the best ways to synthesize high quality items so you can sell them. I mean, I have earned so much gil just from leveling. I think I've probably spent at this point 400k guild leveling. Like, I've got a couple of other crafting professions, armorsmith, blacksmith, and weaver at like the low to mid 20s before I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on one, get through all that, and then start using the materials. So I spent about 400k gil, probably made back like 2.2 million. A lot of high quality items. I am a completionist, so I go down the crafting log and I complete everything. If I haven't completed something, unless it's for one of the quests, which I had to do twice so far now in goldsmithing, I will not move on to the next level of creations until I finish that page. Which, you know, the volume is there that you make so much money off this stuff, and with my current play style, not being able to like give it large chunks at a single time, this has been fantastic. This has been a great way for me to get everything together. So I'm going to finish off mining. I'm going to finish off goldsmithing. Both of those, no matter what, will be 80 before Endwalker happens. Once I get to that point, if I don't get sucked into expert crafting at level 80, I'll probably, after looking at a couple of them, I'll probably do Weaver, just because I'm an Astro main, so it seems kind of like the right thing to do. Botany and Culinarian. Those are like the big three. I haven't really dove into fishing just yet. I think the first quest is to get like Limsa sardines, like 5 of them, and I got 2 of them and got called away on work, so I was like, I can't finish this up. But man, that stuff is killer. I'll get Warrior, Samurai, Dancer, and Red Mage all to 80. I do have Gunbreaker to 68, and I have Paladin to, I think, 60. Never unlocked the Dark Knight. I'll go back. I really want to play that storyline. And then Dragoon is on my list, but I just don't think those guys will be 80 by Endwalker. Since I'm coming into Endwalker at the beginning, I don't know what the Amaro equivalent is in Endwalker just yet, but that is going to happen. No ifs, ands, or buts. I can't wait. So right now, my static is currently farming Titania and Innocent EX for mounts before we head into Eden Savage. As of right now, I have 29 Titania kills, so 29 totems. Innocence, I have 18 Innocence kills and 18 totems. So would really like one of those mounts at some point, but the skill level of my group is probably like a solid C plus for the overall group if we collectively go into it. So if we end up moving into Savage, I don't really see us progressing past like E6 Savage, but the static is really, it's honestly, it's meant to be laid back and non-competitive. We only go for 2.5 hours a week, 1 day a week. So I think E6S would actually be a huge triumph for us in the first place. I know based on talks in our Discord, we're thinking of touching Hades here pretty soon, so that should be pretty nice. Cool, so that's probably going to wrap this video up. What are you up to as we head towards the end of Shadowbringers? Are you playing? Are you taking a break to refresh? Is there a mount, glamour, or a raid that you're looking to tackle before Endwalker? Tune in next week for an update. So the second video in this series will come out 20th. And that one's going to cover the live letter. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do the highlights of the live letter in the next this week in Eorzea, and then I'm going to do individual videos breaking stuff down further. So that should be pretty fun. And you know, tune in for an update. Get ready for that live letter on the 17th. Hopefully you can be around for that. As always, I'm Drew from Team Future Strategy. Enjoy the rest of your day, my fellow warriors of whatever you'd like. Take care.